Well, hello there, Monstars class. Are you ready? I hope you are. Okay, we are going to be working with rounding once again. But this time we are going to be rounding to the nearest 100. So we're rounding to 100 this time, to the hundreds place. So remember, when we're talking about rounding, we're talking about finding which 100 is the exact number nearest to. So we got to switch our thinking from thinking about tens in the tens place to now thinking about hundreds. All right, so here's our I can statement for this video. I can round an exact number to the nearest 100 using my understanding of place value. In our last flip video, we were looking at 3-digit numbers and 2-digit numbers and rounding to the nearest tens place. We use the ones place to help us round to the nearest tens place. But in this flip video, we are going to be using the tens place to help us round to the nearest hundreds. So when you're given a 3-digit number, like 328, and if we're rounding to the nearest hundreds, we're not going to be looking at the tens place to help us determine what goes to the left and to the right of our number line. But now we're going to be looking at the hundreds place to help us determine that. If I'm rounding to the nearest hundreds, I'm looking at our hundreds place to decide what goes here on our left-hand side of our number line. When I look at my hundreds place, I see that I have a 3 in the hundreds place. So to the left of my number line is going to be 300. And then to the right of my number line, the next 100 that comes after 300 is 400, because 300 plus 100 equals 400. Then I need to think to myself, what comes in the middle of my number line? And that would be 350, because 50 is halfway between each 100. Now I have to think about, where would 328 be on my number line? And if I were to mark my number line, I would find that 328 goes about right here. So by looking, I can see that 328 is nearest to this 100 of 300. So if I were rounding 328 to the nearest 100, I would say that I would round it down to 300. This would be my answer. So now I'm going to give you a number like 264, and I want you to pause the video in just a second, and I want you to make a number line. And on your number line, I want you to label the 100 that comes before 264, the 100 that comes after 264, and what number is going to come in the middle, okay? Pause the video and hit play when you're ready. Okay, so you should have marked 200 to the left of the number line and 300 to the right of the number line. When we look at the hundreds place, we see that there's a 2 in the hundreds place. So that means the nearest 100 on the left is 200, and the next 100 is 300 on the right. What goes in the middle would be the number that's halfway between 200 and 300, and that number is going to be 250. So when I think about where should 264 be on my number line, well, it's going to come after 250, not quite halfway. So it's going to be about here, 264. Then I'm going to ask myself, is it closer to 200 or is it closer to 300? And I find that it's closer to 300. So in this case, you're going to round 264. It's going to go up to 300. And 300 would be your answer. All right. Now, when we were rounding to 10 in our first flip video, we learned a rule that said that if they're on a number line, any number 4 or less, we would always round down. And any number at 5 or greater, we would always round up. Well, the same rule applies when we're rounding to the nearest hundred. If you were working with a number like 362, and we want to round to the nearest hundred, we're going to go next door and look at what's in the tens place. And we can see that there's a 6 in the tens place. And remembering our rule that any number greater than 5, we would round up, then we can know without making a number line that we're going to round up to the nearest hundred. And in this case, that would be 400. I'm going to give you the number 424. And I want you to pause the video. I want you to make a number line, and I want you to round 424 to the nearest hundred. Go ahead and pause the video. Okay, your number line should look something like this. And you're going to see that 424 is closer to 400. So we should have known with this number that we should round 424 down to 400. However, you could have checked your work by looking at the number in the tens place, seeing that it's a 2, and knowing that anytime it's less than 4, we always round down to the nearest hundred. In this case, it's 400. Right now, I'm going to give you 2 numbers, and I want you to try to round those numbers to the nearest hundred without drawing a number line. I'm going to give you 763, and I'm going to give you 512. Pause the video and round those numbers to the nearest hundred without drawing a number line. Okay, in our first number, 763, we see that we have a 6 in the tens place. So I know that if it's 6, I'm going to round up to 800. So the correct answer for 673 was up to 800. And then in the next number of 512, I see that I have a 1 in the tens place. And I know if the number is 4 or less in the tens place, I'm going to round down to the nearest hundred, which in this case is 500. Those were the correct answers. Hope you got those right. Give yourself a pat on the back if you did. Okay, here's a challenge problem for you. What about 1,516? That's a 4-digit number. This is Miss Sullivan's meanness coming out. Here it is, right here. I want you to round 1,516 to the nearest hundred. Well, we have the same rules as we always had. If I had a number line, I'm going to look at my hundreds place, which is a 5. So the 100 to the left of my number line is not just 500, but it's 1,500. If I added 100 to the 1,500, I would get 1,600, which goes to the right of my number line. The number that comes in the middle, 1,550. And if I place 1,516 on my number line, it's going to be somewhere around here. So I would round down to 1,500. You don't have to worry if you get a 4-digit number or a 5-digit number or a 6-digit number. Just follow the same rules that you already know. Here's a 4-digit practice for you. I want you to try 2,619. Pause the video and round 2,619 to the nearest hundred. Okay, your number line should look something like this. 2,619 is right here on our number line. So we should round 2,619 down to 2,600. All right, Monstars, I hope you enjoyed the video. Now I'm going to give you 2 problems that I want you to practice on the back of your whisk. And with those numbers, we are going to be dealing with 2,092. And then I also want you to round 2,972. And see what you come up with when you round those to the nearest hundred. These are tricky ones. This is Miss Sullivan's meanness coming out, trying to trick you again. And as always, we're going to finish with this wonderful riddle, this joke, if you will. Okay, here it is. What word starts with an E and ends with an E, but only has 1 letter in it? I wonder what it could be. All right, whisk is due on Thursday. Don't forget about it. Have a great night, Monstars.